Welcome back to Simply Southern, and today we have everybody's favorite garden expert in the studio with us, Sidney Phelps of Bonnie Plants.
Sidney, good to see you.
Good to see you guys.
We got a question here from Janet Donnet. We've tried for 3 years now to grow zucchini. They make male blossoms, but that's it, then they die. We always grew them up north, but no luck here in Alabama. Please help.
Okay. So first thing I would try to find out is, are they planting the same amount in the south as they did up north? Second would be the timing. When are they planting them? You want to make sure that they're, zucchini likes hot weather, but depending on when it hits, sometimes just not, if they do too late, the production is going to be hit because of the heat. Overall with zucchinis, you need to have at least 3 or 4 plants. That will allow for better pollination. And the situation, if you get all males, obviously you're not going to have the pollination. So what I would recommend is, if we're working in the ground, since we don't know how they're growing, if you're working in the ground, then get a soil test. So that's the most important thing with anything that you're growing in the ground, to find out what type of nutrients you need to have in the soil. Secondly, if you can grow in a raised bed when you're dealing with things like zucchini or crookneck, straight neck squash, or cucumbers, get a good balanced soil. You can add the nutrients as needed. Especially with zucchinis, obviously you don't want to produce a ton of zucchinis, and if they're trying to be conscious of that, I would recommend adding in your cucumbers, adding in okra, other seed crops that like the heat. That way you can get a lot of pollination, or just plant even flowers around a raised bed. Anything that can bring pollinators in will help that process out a ton to get that zucchini crop going. So the biggest thing is finding out, what are they differentiating between the north and the south, and maybe get with an extension agent or maybe a local master gardeners group and find out maybe if they can find a better time to plant.
All right, good answer there for Janet. And now we have a question submitted by Dario Dayhoff, and he actually watches from Massachusetts, so he's one of our RFD TV viewers. We always appreciate them. He says he has a farmer friend in central Massachusetts who is well known for her garlic crop, but unfortunately this past year the garlic just didn't produce. The leaves began getting yellow, and then everything just went completely brown. She followed her normal planting and watering schedule, but she did change up to a fresh horse manure as her fertilizer. She's disappointed about the garlic crop, obviously, and would love to know the reason why it just didn't produce.
Sure. So anytime you're dealing with a natural fertilization like horse manure, chicken litter, anything like that, if you're getting it fresh, you're looking at a high rate of nitrogen. It's going to be extremely hot. You should always run that through compost. We've done a lot of different segments about composting and how you should rotate it before you start applying it as fertilizer or overall compost to the goods. So I would say that is probably where the damage came from this year. If she continued her regular trend, garlicky can be a tough crop to grow. It's a bulb crop, so it's much like onions. They like acid, they like a very acidic soil. So controlling that. So what I would recommend is, try it again this year. She's been doing garlic for, it sounds like she's been doing it a long time, and she's successful with it. So I would say work that fresh soil back in, compost it, add the nutrients that you need to do a soil test to make sure where your pH is, because if it's extremely high, Jim knows this. I mean, Jim's got a ton of composting for tropical. So if you're not hitting it right, or you've made a misbalance or error, you're going to run into a major problem with that. So I would say refresh that, get a good soil test, and get ready to plant for the next spring.
All right, well, Sidney, thank you so much. The information you provide is always very helpful. And if you have a question for Sidney, drop him a line at asksidney@simplysouthern.tv.net. And if he answers it on the air, we'll also send you a nice gift.
Thanks for watching Simply Southern today, but it's time for us to go. If you'll come back again next week, we'll see some real horsepower at the Mustang Museum of America.
And we'll see how Alabama's indigenous people settled disputes way back before the Europeans settled here. I'm Mary Wilson.
It's going to take me a while to get used to that Wilson thing.
No.
And I'm Jim Allen. We'll see you next week.
Simply Southern is a production of the Alabama Farmers Cooperative and the Alabama Farmers Federation.